Well, we finally have our MLS Cup Final matchup. We had two very defensive performances in the Eastern and Western Conference Final. We're going to break down what happened and what the MLS Cup Final is going to look like. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to MLS Moves. Please make sure you like this video down below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We are 150 subscribers away from 5,000. Our goal is to hit that 5,000 by MLS Cup Final Day, which is this coming Saturday. So make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that little bell notification so you never miss a video. Well, we had two interesting matchups, starting off with the LA Galaxy and the Seattle Sounders. This was a match that I thought would be a high-scoring game because of how good the Galaxy are at scoring goals. They were averaging 5 goals a game in their previous 3 prior to this match. Now, Seattle is a very defensive, rounded team. But I figured with Seattle missing Yamar, they would probably struggle, even with Stefan Fry playing as well as he had this entire playoffs. Well, the Sounders did have a great defensive performance. They didn't let the Galaxy run rampant like they had in previous games against the Rapids, against Minnesota United. They tamed them pretty well, and it looked like the Sounders had a legitimate chance of winning this match and giving the Galaxy a run for their money. Honestly, the longer the game went on, I started to think the Galaxy could lose this match. This team scores 5 goals a game. They haven't scored in the first half. The first 20 minutes is what I was really looking at to see how this game would go. But at the end of the day, the Sounders' biggest flaw was their undoing. They can't score goals. Now, if you remember in the LAFC match, what saved them was the Maxime Chanot own goal, which led it to go to extra time, and Jordan Morris was the hero of that game. They weren't able to find the back of the net. They had some chances. Jordan Morris really didn't do that much this game. Albert Rusnak had a couple of chances, but couldn't find the back of the net. And that is a big problem for the Sounders and was their undoing. Now, the Galaxy looked a little sloppy this game. Didn't look like their normal scoring, entertaining, chance creating selves, and they looked like they were frustrated all game and played sloppy. But at the end of the day, they were able to score a goal in the 84th minute thanks to Dejan Joveljic, who has had the best season of his MLS career. So that was the concern I had, is that at a certain point, if the Galaxy did score, the Sounders would be in trouble because they weren't able to do anything in this game or really, I think, create any serious chances outside of Rusnak's one shot on goal that was right into John McCarthy's arms. And I think about 20 minutes left in the game, the Sounders tried to park the bus and try to force this thing in to go to extra time. And I think that their goal was to hopefully get this to penalties, and they felt good about that because the Galaxy struggle on penalties, and the Sounders are pretty good on penalties, and I think they believed in Stefan Fry to save them. But when the Galaxy scored that goal, the Sounders were chasing the rest of the game, and it just felt like the game was over. The Sounders weren't going to find the back of the net in the final 6 minutes plus stoppage time because they just couldn't find any chances all game long. So I didn't really like that game plan by the Sounders, and give props to the Galaxy for being able to find the back of the net after struggling all game long. Peck wasn't able to score. Paintsel wasn't able to score. Puig wasn't able to score. But Joveljic was able to find the back of the net when it really mattered for this team. And sadly, in this game, because of a challenge by Christian Roldan, Riqui Puig is injured. Tore his ACL, which is absolutely devastating for the LA Galaxy because he is the key cog in their machine. Everything goes through him. He touches the ball more than any other player in Major League Soccer. He's all over the field. He's a true maestro, and it's going to hurt. And it's sad, honestly, because when you have a player that important to the team and they win, you want to see that player have a chance to win the MLS Cup and get a chance to help his team out. So he's truly going to be missed for the LA Galaxy, and hopefully he has a speedy recovery because we know the ACL injuries can take some time. He might be out until the middle of next season, which is really sad, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with them. And also, I have to point out Marco Royce. One of the things I like that that Greg Vanney did, and I said this in the watch along. Take Marco Royce out, put Delgado in, have Delgado and Cerrillo do all the running for the Galaxy, and free up Puig to kind of float around a little more. That made a huge difference, and I think that was a deciding factor in the game. Now, there's been debate on if they took Royce out because he was injured, or did they take him out because of a tactical change. Either way, I think that was the right move, and I think that really did help the game out. And it's crazy that Puig had his Kobe Bryant moment when he tore his Achilles and he made those 2 free throws against the Warriors in 2013. That was Puig's moment, getting the game-winning assist to Jovic on one ACL. I mean, that is incredible. Even if you're not a fan of the Galaxy, that is an incredible determination and grit that we need more of in this league. So have to give props to Riqui Puig. Hope that he's okay and that he has a speedy recovery. And as far as the Sounders, props to you guys, okay? You guys, everybody counted you out at the beginning of the season. They thought that there was no chance you were going to make it to the MLS or the Western Conference Final, let alone win 2 series or a series against the Dynamo and then against the LAFC, especially because Dola had your number. But props to you guys. You got to the Western Conference Final. There is some promise. You guys just need to go out and get a number 10 and a number 9. And I think the Sounders could be legitimate contenders again next year and maybe even return to the MLS Cup Final. And they had a hell of a performance. Applause, or I have to give an applause to the defense, the back four. I think that Reagan did a good job. Nathan did a good job. I think Nuhu did a really good job taking out Gabriel Peck. He did a really good job of limiting him in this game. Very good one-on-one defender. Have to give him props. This was a good matchup, and sadly for the Sounders fans, you guys fell short, but there's a lot to be hopeful for, and you have to be proud of what your team did this season. So the LA Galaxy will advance to the MLS Cup Final for the first time in a decade. I was 19 the last time the LA Galaxy played an MLS Cup Final, which is kind of crazy to think about. So moving on to the Eastern Conference, we have Orlando City and the New York Red Bulls. Now, I had expected the Red Bulls to win this game because they were, I don't want to say the darling of the league, but they were the underdog of the playoffs. They were the team that were really playing well, like a team knocking off the Columbus Crew in the first round. The reigning MLS champs swept them in the first round, beat New York City FC, their crosstown rival, Hudson River Derby, hadn't beat them all regular season and then beat them in the playoff. It just feels different. It feels different this time. Now, this game was, I would say, I don't want to say ugly, but there wasn't a lot of action in this game. But they were able to find the back of the net on a beautiful cross to Reyes, and it was a header, is beautiful. And that was the only scoring we saw in this game, is a 1-0 finish. But I was disappointed in Orlando City SC. They had Henrique starting up top, Duncan McGuire, who he's been pretty good in his time with Orlando City. He lost his spot. He's been more of a super sub. I would have liked to seen him get a chance to start, or even look at Luis Muriel. They spent a lot of money on this guy to bring him in as a DP. He's making $5 million a year. He's only got 4 goals and like 30 appearances. It's just like the Orlando City hasn't spent their money wisely, and it's really caught up with them, in my opinion. There are some pieces on this team. I thought Facundo Torres did not have a good game. I thought Facundo Torres needed to have a bigger showing than what he did, especially because he is the best player on this club. He came up small in this game, and you just saw Oscar Perea's biggest flaws, not making adjustments and living up to the moment in the big games, which has always been a huge criticism of Oscar Perea. That's why I think it might be time to move off of him, not because he's bad, but he's just not the right coach for this team, especially if they have MLS Cup aspirations. I think we've seen enough on what he can do as a manager, and he's very, very limited. And I think that they could get someone in here and really make a better run, have more consistent play. If you remember last year, he really struggled until the end. Then he really turned it on, and Orlando was a hot team. He just never lives up to the big moment. And it's sad because Orlando City does have all that talent. Now, speaking of the New York Red Bulls, Emil Forsberg, what a signing. What a signing. When he plays for the Red Bulls, they're 10 wins, 3 draws, 3 losses in the regular season. That was the record they posted. When he doesn't play, they're 3 wins, 3 draws, 9 losses. Guy is an absolute stud, deserves a lot of credit for what he's been able to do and help this team win and make it to their first MLS Cup final since 2008. Ironically, they played their MLS Cup in 2008 at Dignity Health Sports Park. It was the Home Depot Center, I think, back then in Los Angeles because they used to do neutral sites. But they didn't play the Galaxy or Chivas USA, which was the other LA club at that time. So he's able to help them return to the MLS Cup final for the first time since 2008. Not even the great legendary, what I consider to be the best striker in Premier League history, Thierry Henry, was able to help the Red Bulls make it to the MLS Cup final. So I have to give kudos to the Red Bulls, to Emil Forsberg, and Sandro Schwartz. There were fans who said that Schwartz wasn't a good manager. They made a mistake by letting go of Troy Lessin. But that's obviously not the case because Troy Lessin failed at DC United this year, didn't do well. And Sandro Schwartz has this team in the MLS Cup final, something that Jesse Marsch couldn't do, something that Chris Armas couldn't do, something that Mike Petke couldn't do, something that Troy Lessin couldn't do. He is doing, I think Struber was the other manager. Gerard Struber couldn't do. 5 managers couldn't do this, but Sandro Schwartz did. And he deserves credit for that. And I think that shows how good or how beneficial it is to get some of these European managers in MLS because coaching does matter. It does matter. And if they were able to win while they didn't score a goal, any attackers didn't score a goal, Lewis Morgan, Dante Vanzier, Emil Forsberg, they still played a good collective, organized game. They could give the Galaxy some serious trouble, especially with Riqui Puig out in the MLS Cup final. Now, I want to know what you guys think. What was your biggest takeaways from this weekend in both Western and Eastern Conference finals? How are you feeling about the MLS Cup final? New York Red Bulls versus LA Galaxy. First time either of these teams have ever played each other in the MLS Cup final. And it is the final we all predicted, right? This is the final. This is how everybody had their bracket going, right? So, yes, we all know all of our brackets are cooked. Nobody predicted this. I did predict the Galaxy would make it to the MLS Cup final, but I didn't predict they would play the New York Red Bulls. So you have to give a lot of credit to the New York Red Bulls for what they've done and the LA Galaxy. Greg Vanney as well he deserves some flowers. And Will Kuntz for helping turn this team around. It's going to be a very fun MLS Cup final. I'm going to do a preview this week and probably a couple videos, so stay tuned for that. If you enjoyed the video, like it down below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like I said, we're getting close to 5,000 subscribers. So make sure you subscribe if you haven't already and hit the little bell notification so you never miss a video. Until next time, guys, I will see you all soon.